Well, it looks like the summer job market is slowly vanishing. Youth unemployment has been pitched sky high in part due to temporary foreign worker program. It's coming from the National Post. If we go further into this article here, it says it's the worst summer jobs market in 2 decades. And summer job listings are down 22% compared to this time last year. And in the first quarter of 2025, Canada admitted 44,675 temporary foreign workers, which is actually slightly higher than the 42,000, almost 43,000 admitted during the first quarter of 2024. On top of that, we have a Conservative MP here ripping apart the Carney government for not presenting a budget.
Look, there's a lot of issues this country has to deal with, whether it's things like the cost of living or actual solutions in building homes for people, on unleashing our economy and our resources, on confronting out-of-control crime, on fixing an immigration system that has sown chaos across this country. These are big, heady issues, big challenges. We know the government has been inspired by a lot of things that they've seen from the opposition, the Conservatives, and we applaud them for that. And Conservatives in the opposition had said during the campaign, we're ready to work for 100 days to pass 3 laws that are readily drafted and ready to go. Our platform is drafted and ready to go. It's costed and ready to go. It's a plan. Now, we were told that there would be a plan by this government, but it has not yet been presented, and they said they need extra time to do so, which I think is a bit unfortunate.
You think you could have had a budget ready to go by next month?
Twice before in elections, and as you would know, when I used to work with former Prime Minister Harper, I know what it means to go through the machinery of government, how to rely on the excellent civil service, the finance officials of which Mr. Carney once was part of. They would have had a transition plan. They would have had some thinking around how to manage the finances of the country. And Mr. Carney had a costed budget that he had presented through his own Liberal platform. So, in my mind, let's extend Parliament. Let's get to work. Let's get to work for the people of Canada on the priorities that I just intimated would be the important priorities of all Canadians. That's cost of living, housing, fixing the budget, growing the economy, unleashing trillions of dollars of resource wealth so that when the G7 occurs, the Prime Minister is well equipped to actually give the world what it has been demanding so much of.
And that's really the only thing we can hope for at this point, is that they cancel the summer recess and extend Parliament. I highly doubt it's going to happen. All I know is at least Pierre and the Conservatives had a plan. Speaking of Pierre, he is reacting to the throne speech that just happened earlier today.
Thank you very much, everyone. And before I begin, let me thank my Deputy Leader, Melissa Lanceman. We join today in thanking His Majesty for coming to Canada and delivering the throne speech, reinforcing our ancient British liberties, a parliamentary system that goes back 800 years, a system that has served Canada well and has been the foundation of what I love to call the Canadian promise, that anyone who works hard gets a great life in a nice, affordable house on a safe street. That's the promise that we as Conservatives ran to restore, and it's why we were able to get 2 million more votes and 24 more seats. We inspired a lot of people that we would fight for that Canadian promise and bring forward that hope. And we were looking for that promise and that hope in this speech today. We did see a lot of the right slogans and political talking points, but no clear plans to get it done. One slogan dealt with controlling government spending, but there were no specific savings to roll back the morbidly obese Liberal government's costs. We saw promises about getting things built, but no mention of oil and gas or pipelines. Pipelines are, of course, the thing we most need to build. Didn't get one mention, nor did they mention getting rid of the anti-energy laws that have kept our resources in the ground. C-69, the no development law, C-48, the shipping ban, the energy cap, the electric vehicle mandate. All of these things were left out of the speech altogether. No specific plans to get anything done, even though, as the Prime Minister has said, we are in a crisis to break our dependence on the American economy. They mentioned crime, but refused to say that they would repeal the Liberal catch and release bail law, C-75, or the house arrest law, laws that have allowed rampant chaos and crime to overtake our once tranquil streets. No mention of overcoming the opioid crisis and replacing tax-funded drugs and legalization with treatment and recovery. No mention of real plans to get taxes under control by reducing the cost of government. So we're here to turn the government's talking points into real plans. We pledge to work with the government to repeal the anti-energy law, C-69, repeal the energy cap, the electric vehicle mandate, the offshore shipping ban. Let's get our pipelines building. Let's get our goods to markets other than the United States. We're here to propose cuts to bureaucracy, consultants, foreign aid, and corporate welfare so that we can bring down taxes, debt, and inflation. Let's repeal the catch and release laws so that we can restore safety to our streets. Let's invest in treatment and recovery to bring our loved ones home drug-free. In other words, let's replace the talking points with real plans to get it done. That is what Conservatives pledge to do. That is what Canadians voted for us to fight for, and that is what we will deliver. Thank you very much.
So will you support the speech from the throne if there's stuff you can supporting it?
There are some messages we want to see is plans. So we're going to put forward what we consider to be a constructive amendment that will add very specific plans. So for example, the government says they want to get projects built. Great. We've got just the plan to do it. Repeal C-69, the anti-development law. Repeal the energy cap, the offshore shipping ban, the electric vehicle mandate, and unlock the incredible investment that could bring jobs and self-sufficiency to Canada. They say they want to reverse course on crime. Well, we've got the plan for that too. We will put forward an amendment that says that they should repeal C-75, the catch and release bail law. They say they want to get their spending back kind of hilariously under control after decades of overspending. Well, we've got plans for that too. So our amendment will put real plans in place rather than slogans and talking points.
The NDP says this speech could have essentially been written by a Conservative government. Do you agree?
Well, I would have written a different speech. So the speech that I would have written would have said the things that I've just said now.
A lot of this, having the king, whatever, was meant to assert something about Canada to the world. Did you take that away from the speech? And what do you think the impact of all that messaging is on how people perceive us, including but not limited to Donald Trump?
You know, it's been a centuries-old debate between Canada's primary relationship with the Crown and with our closest neighbour. We saw that as far back as John A. Macdonald. We saw it again in the free trade debate. I think it is important to reinforce the British traditions of our parliamentary democracy and to reassert that we have a centuries-old friendship with the United Kingdom. Those traditions survive today. The place behind me right now is following many of the same rules that were scribbled on parchment hundreds of years ago in Britain. And all, of course, this was the result of the Great Magna Carta, an 800-year-old tradition that basically created liberty under the law. So I think it's important that the world recognize that we have those ancient traditions and that the Americans recognize that we are an independent and free country that will make its own decisions. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
I'm gonna find it incredibly funny if the Conservatives just create amendment after amendment, bill after bill, hand it over to the Liberals, and then Carney just goes, "This is fantastic, we're gonna use it." I can only imagine his cabinet would revolt. I also don't think for a second that Carney would repeal certain things like the energy practices or the renewable energy policies that he has in place or that the Liberals had implemented over the past 10 years. Instead of doing this incredibly drawn-out throne speech, they simply could have just started working to pass these bills to remove trade barriers within the country from province to province. Instead, we're doing this. We're having the king deliver the future plans for the government on behalf of Mark Carney. I want to know what you think down in the comments section below. Hit that like button, hit that sub button if you're new, and thank you very much for watching.